If I could live anywhere in the world, it would be right here in Utah. A friend told me recently as I inquisitively asked him that soul-searching question. Puzzled, I sought to understand his point of view. See, to him, everything he ever needed in life was right here in Utah, and he didn't believe that anywhere in the world could be better. Having traveled more of the world, I knew differently. Today I want to bring to light a word that recently caught my eye and caused me to think. The word is ethnocentrism. To break it down, the prefix ethno refers to race or culture, and the root word center refers to a central focus or viewpoint. Together, ethnocentrism is a belief in the superiority of your own culture, whether a conscious or unconscious belief. The problem is that most of us have an ethnocentric outlook on the rest of the world, especially outside of our own culture and home country, and I want to offer a real solution to fix it. As a boy, I was raised in the country of Angola, Africa, where poverty abounded, and the way of life was far different to the state of Texas where I called home. I lived on a compound of less than 30 houses, and for the next 5 years, I hardly left unless I was going to the local international school or on a vacation to the surrounding countries. I don't think I even realized that my life was abnormal to my cousins or friends in the States. On Sundays, we would be escorted by an armed driver to our local church congregation, where we'd sit for 3 hours and listen to the local African people speak Portuguese scripture. If I was lucky, someone would try and translate bits and pieces of it for me, or my parents would try to. But often, I would read an English church magazine or play games with my siblings. We were the only white people to go to the church, and one of a few Americans to attend our international school. My best friends were from countries like Brazil, India, Angola, and England, and I got to experience their cultures firsthand. Little did I know that the experiences I was having would be life-changing. As an early teenager, I moved to Bergen, Norway, right on the west coast of Scandinavian Europe. Once again, I lived in a culture totally different from my own, and went to an international school with a diverse student population. I loved the incredible views, the amazing chocolate, and the new understanding that I received as I traveled to surrounding countries. See, what I couldn't understand were words I was taught like racism, bigotry, or intolerance, because all my best friends had always been different than I. I would definitely say that my diverse childhood brought a cultural understanding that I couldn't have received back home. However, when I moved back home to Texas, where Taco Bell was cheap and I could understand every word at the supermarket, I found my heart right there, ultimately where it had always been. And as I looked back at my experiences living overseas, I was overjoyed to finally be back home, where people and places were normal. Although I lived in Norway and Africa, those countries never lived in me. My heart never left the red, white, and blue grounds. And there's nothing wrong with loving your own culture, don't get me wrong. But when you start to place your own culture above others, you start to unconsciously develop an ethnocentric outlook on the world. So, how do we allow our souls to fully connect with another culture that's totally opposite of our own? See, for me, that all changed when a plane brought me overseas to the Southeast Asian country of Malaysia on my religious mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. However, this time I didn't bring with me an American bubble, fit with comfortable food, congenial people, and social media to keep me connected to my friends and family when life got tough. See, this time I was all in, and I was going to be fully immersed in this brand new culture. Right at the beginning, I was sent to a little town about a mile wide called Sibujaya, where I was the only American and only Caucasian. I learned the Malay language because nobody spoke English, and I struggled day after day to connect with the locals. I had read all about the country and people before I arrived, but the food, heat, and different way of life made every day extremely tough. And I realized that no matter how hard I tried, Google Translate, hand signals, and body language didn't help me enjoy each day more than I had the day before. And I quickly realized that to love the culture like my companions did, I had to fully invest in their language. I also learned that I couldn't learn their language from an off-the-shelf Quizlet or a formal dictionary created an ocean away in the capital. I had to learn their language from them. And this is where everything changed. As I began to use and understand their language, I started to understand and connect with their culture, and my love for Malaysians dramatically increased. Over the next few months, I realized a couple of powerful lessons. First, to truly come to connect with the culture, you must learn to switch from a spectator, or tourist really, to a best friend or a close family member. And best friends don't communicate through YouTube videos or news articles. They don't learn about each other through TripAdvisor or school classes. They talk and laugh and cry and cook together within a culture bound by a common language. See, my heart finally joined me in Malaysia on the nights I sat on concrete floors and ate dinner with the families kind enough to share their food with me. It joined me as I played soccer and laughed with local kids as monsoon rains soaked us to the very core. And it left me on the day when I sat and cried with the family I had come to love, but ultimately had to leave. You see, connection is crafted as you carefully let your walls fall to a people that you just met, but came to love nonetheless. A connection unaided by the media, the internet, or the biases of what you've been told before. A connection formed by a common language, with time spent joking and laughing and making sarcastic comments in that language, of which I was very good at. But I didn't realize how much these experiences impacted me until the day that my life changed. I received a call that a new virus was spreading rapidly and that I would be evacuated urgently back home, arriving within 48 hours. I remember crying out on the balcony of our little apartment before I began packing up the little belongings that I had. I feared for my new local family and how they would deal with the new pandemic. And my heart ached because it didn't have any time to prepare. The next day, I was evacuated. I thought my heart, as always, would accompany me, but this time, it stayed put. It stayed in the humble village huts that I visited off the main roads, and in the little concrete boxes that were handcrafted into homes. It remained in the little-known Indian shop, and the meager business lot that was turned into a church, our church. Moving back home this time didn't seem to move my heart. Months later, I'd bring together my two families, separated by a sea, and teach them clever words and local phrases and watch them smile together. If I was lucky, I'd catch a glimpse of my content heart, who happily stayed behind. We'd nod at each other and say goodbye until we could briefly reconnect again. There was no desire to come back to a more comfortable world. See, I believe that Malaysia is different than Africa or Norway because I vulnerably connected with the people and learned their language, not the language. Jesus Christ commanded us to be in the world, but not of the world. But I challenge you to be in the world and of the world. See, not in the sense of taking their standards to replace your own, but being willing to vulnerably allow yourself to become one of them, dropping the walls and the prejudice and the discrimination and the judgment. I believe that as we fully live among another culture, be as the people are, and speak as they speak, we are able to mend the ethnocentric outlook on the world that we unknowingly carry with us, and not only be tolerant of other cultures, but learn to love them as equals of your own. Thank you.